Why, hello there. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. My name is Mr. Dogboat333 and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 4, the new order as the United Mexican States. In the last video, we started working on our legacy building for El Tapado. And we're struggling in the construction, but we're getting there when it comes to legacy, the Great Human President, and the perception of El Tapado. I guess these two really relate to the heir, and this relates more to Senor Lopez Mateos. So it's all coming together, I think. Struggling a little bit on the construction, I believe, but reception, I think we got okay. Yeah, so it's all coming together. I'm gonna try to stay awake as best I can. I just had a very long day. Today was the day where we had the first presidential debates between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and it was something all right. I don't want to get too much into it just because I don't want to upset anyone, but anyway. Cuba's revolution will be our military model, Arturo Camis said, an authoritative teacher with a dog-eared copy of Guevara's Guerrilla Warfare as his only textbook. While the bean cabin that was now a schoolhouse was filled with bean students and bitter peasants. All had learned the harsh lessons of Cadillo-controlled Chihuahua. We will break into columns, small, disciplined groups that can attack oppressors and vanish before the state's forces arrive in bulk. We evade them in the Sierra until it is time to strike, demonstrating their impotence and that resistance can succeed. By breaking caciques, we can free peasants from oppression in the short term and build support and readiness for the true revolution. Any questions? A young veteran new to the group stood and introduced himself with a blunt, Salvador Gaitan, and then continued, I'd like to volunteer to lead one of these columns. My question is, what's our first objective? Camis gave Gaitan a long, hard look, neither flinching or looking away. Arturo nodded. The great estate of the Ibarra family are at a boiling point. A small push, the peasants that labor on their lands would revolt against daily humiliations and countless massacres. That will give a column an opportunity to attack the infrastructure that sustains the Ibarra apparatus. Will you take that opportunity? Gladly, says Gaitan. Oh yeah, it was Republic of Serbia. Interesting. I'll put it like this. If you were a Joe Biden / Democrat supporter, this last debate, you were probably dying inside with how Biden did. I think this is an equivalent debate for Trump supporters. It was not good for Donald Trump. Holy shit. And that's all I'll leave it at. I do have my my VOD on demand on my Twitch because I did stream live, so if you want to check that out, go ahead. 2. Adolfo Garcia Robles. Licenciado Robles. Great things are happening around us. The revolutionary cause has advanced, and the people call out for a modern Mexico that can show its strength in the face of imperialist powers. You know very well the need for international solidarity in our precarious place between the Japanese and Americans. This difficult position wouldn't be so professionally managed without you and your colleagues' diligence as diplomats representing the revolution on the world stage. Yet, with no disrespect to your colleagues, I cannot understate your personal importance. You've set the stage for a united Latin America, managing the two giants while securing powerful ties to Brazil, Venezuela, and Cuba has undeniably benefited the nation. As one, I'm offering you the position of Secretary of External Affairs. I'm very certain that your expertise will further serve the Mexican people through this prestigious promotion. If you accept this offer, please attend the press conference next Sunday, where we'll discuss these matters further. The revolution has a long way to go. With your help, it will go farther. Sincerely, Carlos A. Madrazo. The revolution will scour Latin America for its allies. Well, there we go. Nice big sip of water. Yeah, if you guys want to check out the VOD on my Twitch channel, go ahead. It's also September on Twitch, so if you want to support me in a more direct way, you could purchase a subscription. I can't promise I'm going to be able to stream much more, just because of how work is playing out, but I just want to throw that out there in case you're interested. What the hell are we even doing this for? They threatened to fire us before. We didn't show up, and Victor began was interrupted by one of the other railway workers. Okay, good to know. The max is out at 5. I'm gonna reload the save so that I don't lose 10 political power for no reason. We're learning Mexico together. Unless you've already finished your game of Mexico in the time that you've this DLC's been out, or this update's been out, which has been almost a month at this point, I think. In which case you're probably cringing as I stumble my way through. But hey, you get to stumble through with me, and hopefully we have fun stumbling together. That's all I can ask. Not show up and what? Get fucked over by my boss? The bosses yet again? Man, I need fucking money for the fucking fun. I need the fucking money for my family. Can't go fucking around yet again, especially over speech. Silence fell on the crowd as they shuffled their way through the crowd standing before a small ramshackle stage made specifically for this occasion. Alright, let's do... We'll organize a rally. We can't really do too much there, can we? That's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, your president, Adolfo Lopez Mateos. The leader of the Mexican people, Lopez Mateos, stepped onto the stage. He gave his signature grin to the crowd as they cheered his arrival. Most were enthusiastic, with only a spattering of subdued celebration, such as those of railway workers. And yet, the energy that exploded at the start of the rally did not dissipate. As Lopez Mateos spoke, talking about bringing prosperity to the Mexican workers through solidarity and economic security, workers found themselves pulled along with the rest of the crowd as they allowed the president to guide them towards a shining future and vision. All of us will one day look forward to a future where our wants are seen to, our needs looked after, and our social ills dispelled. And we may only see this future if we all do what is necessary and play our part in carrying out the ideals of the Mexican Revolution. As Lopez Mateos continued, the topic on the minds of railway workers was not about the strike that had been broken up mere weeks ago. Instead, it was about Lopez Mateos and what they might do to help in his fight for justice, equality, and liberty. The smile paints over the cracks. Madrazo helped himself to some complimentary hotel water. The breakfast area had been virtually taken over by the presidential campaign team, with staffers and aides treating themselves to the buffet after an arduous night of canvassing in Jalisco. Alfonso Corona del Rosal, party president, nursed a plain sandwich and a pot of coffee. I even eat like a soldier. Madrazo upped his chin as he consulted one of the regional newspapers. Like you're still in the barracks. Del Rosal did not join in the laugh. The president-elect straightened himself. I'm making you the new head of the federal district. Del Rosal looked up from his cup after sipping, rolling his head from side to side. He obviously wanted to change of management in the capital after how the Iron Region was running things. Madrazo scowled at the mention of Ernest P. Orchurtu, who he had unceremoniously fired over the telephone the night before. He was good for the wealthy of the middle class, but what about the poor, the common people? You're no nonsense, licenciado. We need a man like that running the capital. It's not all about me, though. Del Rosal narrowed his eyes as he made a point to try to see through Madrazo. You want to settle things with old guard, too. The president-elect shrugged theatrically. Better than the maverick Manista. Folding up his newspaper, Madrazo stood. You were a lieutenant in the cavalry. You know better than anyone how important national security is to the well-being of the nation. All I want to know is, are you up to it, licenciado? Draining his coffee, gruff Del Rosal rose in tow. They locked hands in a firm shake. You can count on me, Excellency. The revolution is only as secure as its capital. Alright, well, we got this going. What do we want to do next? Construction. Well, the poverty rate would probably be good to get going. Yeah, let's send in the IMSS. El Instituto Mexicano del Seguro Social is our conduit through which we are able to give the average person a helping hand. While the primary tool in their arsenal is providing welfare, the toolbox is full of other public health initiatives that we are more than happy to make sure they keep on providing, building new hospital infrastructures, battling diseases, rolling out vaccinations, and many more positive initiatives. It's a massive no-brainer to continue providing them when the resources that they need and a massive victory for the Mexicans far and wide. In pursuit of living well, you can never put in too much. That'll help with our construction. Be very good for us. Especially because we're really behind in construction. Alright, so we reselected that. I think I will go ahead and televise the process. And, okay, so... Okay, we're not going to have very much political power. But, okay, so free preparation from random campaign. So it's possible that Legacy will be wiped out this next turn, if I'm understanding this all correctly. Crane has lumbered concrete, what was the last name? Cranes lumbered concrete from their high winches across the city skyline, piloted by a man so small of a naked eye, he appeared scarcely larger than the black dot of the current Secretary of Public Works, Javier Barros Sierra. Dusty workmen trudged by, some armed with pallets and boxes, others with steel tools, while he and the erstwhile Governor Tabasco, Carlos de Madrazo, stood unblemished in their fine tan suits, basking in the crisp rays of a morning sun. The cyclone scanned over the horizon with a pair of binoculars before nudging Sierra for his turn. All the infrastructure for the Olympics seems to be coming along nicely, Secretary. What's your secret? The secret in question, more of an open one to those with an appreciation of fine talent. Check the projects. Good. Was that Sierra was the most skilled engineer in all of Mexico, perhaps even all of Latin America. He wrote the book Proverbial and Literal. Co-founder of one of the world's best engineering firms. Renowned lecturer, reformist politician. What makes him tick? Sierra lowered the binoculars and let them dangle from their sling. He shrugged and smiled. It's all just lazy talent, licenciado. Can't explain it. Some people worked hard all their lives to get where they are. But for me, it just comes naturally. I'm either very lucky or I'm a fraud. Madrazo wafted his hand dismissively. You're too modest. I wouldn't be approaching you to continue on my cabinet if you're just some hack bureaucrat who could build a road or two. They laughed. The cyclone clasped Sierra's shoulder. I'm serious, Javier. You're the conscience of the party. My government would be at a loss without the lazy talent of yours. What do you say? Count me in. A good man, but can he bear the sacrifices the revolution requires? Well, we'll just have to fuck around and find out, huh? Okay, unemployment is finally coming along. Let's see what we can do. Quality of life. Go and boost things in the Gulf. Expanding power lines. And I think, yeah, okay. Lieutenant was only there to take notes, and notes he took, capturing and treasuring every utterance with more care than Diaz del Castillo had put into his account of conquest. Because the men and the legends here gathered in Federal District, perhaps for the last time, were sharing how the revolution had been won, and what that should mean for the Mexico of tomorrow. General Fierro Villalobos was wrapping up. The same principle that drove my success with General Calles drove the success of the recent Air Force modernization plan. They likewise would drive the success of full modernization of our armed forces in the years ahead. First, we must take the latest arms and latest lessons from global conflicts and firmly adapt them to a Mexican context. Bombing innovations from the First World War were essential to free General Obregón from the Yaqui. But targeting had to be broadened substantially to give the tribes greater mobility. Second, new capabilities need to be made known across all arms of the military, rather than only the specialists that wield them. During the Escobarista Rebellion, General Calles needed and received absolute faith in our bombing capabilities. To make a river crossing covered by air alone, I'm not sure similar trust exists today. Lastly, we must expand and deepen our military schooling to disseminate doctrinal and technological advances further into our forces. A few bright spots no longer cover the lagging mean. Generals Oropeza and Escobar Diaz gave firm nods before turning their attention to the waiting Secretary of National Defense, General Olachea. He gave a slight nod of his own before replying. The reference to be key is apt. Our enemies will take many forms over the coming decades, but mobility and sustained firepower will be key in their defeat. Strengthening offensive operations will take precedence. Our forces will not always have the luxury of positions in Naco. Every glorious pen stroke had been won with sweat and blood. Alright, we're doing maneuver warfare. Am I okay with that? Probably do strategic theorem, actually. That makes more sense to me. Cool. The home of General Lazar Cardenas was a modest one. Madrazo thought as he stepped towards the door. Driving past, the thought that the former president lived here would scant cross one's mind. But for a man who'd served Mexican people so admirably, such modesty was hardly surprising to him. Moments later, the door opened, revealed the man himself. Madrazo smiled and instantly reached his hand out for a shake, which Cardenas gave only a few moments later. It's an honor to meet you, General. What you have done for the Mexican people has transformed us for the better. My secretary warned you of my arrival, yes? They said you were wanting to discuss my future with the party. Cardenas seemed less enthused about this meeting, but the fact that he was even allowing the conversation to go on gave Madrazo hope. That's correct. I'd like to offer you the position of Secretary of National Defense. Madrazo had expected some immediate reaction from Cardenas, but the former president's face veiled nothing as his eyes continued to stare back at Madrazo. Finally, Cardenas replied, You want me to work for the party which tarnished my legacy, tarred and feathered my movement, and treated the work that I had done with little to no respect. I would like you to serve your country one last time as you have done before. Madrazo knew honesty was best here, so he continued. Salinas got close to securing the nomination. We barely managed to stop him, but my reforms failed, but technocrats will use it as an excuse to take over the party. General, I need you. He last gave Madrazo a nod. Come inside. We have much to discuss. The most loyal son of the revolution steps forward. Lupita ran across the deserted hospital lobby. I'm going to check and see what we ended up doing. Yep, look at that. I should have figured. Okay, the cool air of a Saltillo night did little soothe her burning lungs as she ran down the street. Just a block away, the last bus of the night idled at the empty bus stop. Shit. The driver was already closing the front door. Lupita shouted, but it was no use. The diesel engine roared, and black smoke spewed from the exhaust as the bus roared away in the cold desert night. Lupita leaned against the door of a darkened storefront and stretched her aching legs. She hadn't exactly planned on picking up an additional shift at the hospital after a full day's work, but she knew what happened to interns who left bad impressions on their employers. There was no sense in throwing away her future over one night. She walked back down the silent street and dragged herself through the doors of a hospital. The receptionist gave her a quizzical glance before turning back to her magazine. Lupita thought about asking her to phone a cab before dismissing the idea. Her 400 peso monthly stipend barely covered rent and food as it was. Better save the money for a real emergency. Lupita wandered through the empty white halls of the hospital before arriving at a storage room in her unit. Inside were rows upon rows of steel gurneys. She collapsed into the closest one. Sleep did not come quickly, nor did it stay for long. The frigid hospital air in her aching back made sure of that. Lupita woke before dawn and got to work, reviewing patient charts for the day. Alright, well... Interesting. Let's do... To unite in love... Oh, actually, let's do protecting for our people. At face value, behemoth party like the PRI might suggest some draconian beast is controlling Mexico United ideology, and though while crushing those who didn't adhere to its party line. Such a way of thinking can be further from truth, of course. The PRI's dominance has given way for many currents of thought to run through it, and indeed we're quite proud of a current administration is in fact the most left-leaning that the party's had since the time of President Cardenas. We can accept more conservative elements in the party and the opposition in the pond, but this is because they adhere to the democratic process and stand with the Constitution. What is not acceptable is those who defy these ranges blatantly. Totalitarianism, radicalism, groups with no regard for democracy and what it stands for. It's in the national interest of every Mexican to put our forces on guard against these kinds of threats, and to protect against the subversion of peace. Well, there we go. We're actually okay on legacy. So we got perception to catch up on, but I believe, yeah, that'll get us there. So we really need to work on construction. I'm curious about... I want to check something real quick. So I'm making sure. Okay, so that was only... Okay, interesting. So it only took one from here. And only 3. Okay. Matsushita, friend of the channel. Very nice. There goes Mania. Manila. I'm too used to Spanish spellings. Is it Mania? I actually don't know. Finally, Viardra's process was over, and Madrazo had the people he would count on to ensure a successful presidency. Now there was more debriefing process, gathering everyone in one room to discuss how to go about things. First thing is the rules of my presidency. Madrazo scanned his cabinet members while continuing to speak. We must be committed to the further revolution, to the change that we must bring to Mexico to keep the flames alight. Each and every one of us must be filled with passion. Give those who've been neglected in Mexico's past a helping hand. He warmed internally as he saw determination in most of their faces, there only being a few that he couldn't read. We, especially you all, must know that our reforms will not be welcomed by all. I have no doubt in my mind of the support of the people, but we will receive grievances from others. Those with more power, those who wish to continue lining their pockets. They will attempt with all force that they can to destroy any improvement we make to Mexico. We must be ready. Carlos could feel his own conviction burning bright along with the others in the room. We'll stick to our weapons to ensure that, just like in the Battle of Puebla, we'll emerge victorious despite their expectations. They will protect the better Mexico that we will build. Madrazo took a deep breath and looked across the room once more. He was ready. They were ready. Ready to kick up a reform storm. Am I gonna get enough political power? Possibly. How many more calls do we need? Carmen asked, her hands gingerly wrapped around a cup of coffee she was nursing. Isabel, another one of the callers, was hunched over by the water cooler, filling up a styrofoam cup of her own. For each one of us? Isabel asked as she glanced down back at Carmen. About 400, give or take, depending on how quick you've been. Might seem like a lot, but trust me, it'll be easier next election. But must we take so many calls? I'm not sure the other sectors are taking things a bit slower. What difference does 100,000 versus a few thousand make? The other parties are never going to match the priest turnout. It just seems excessive, don't you think? Isabel sighed. You really don't know, do you? She didn't wait for a reply. When the corporate central calls, or on the confederations, it's our job to answer. The CTM, the CNC, the CNOP, it doesn't matter. Our bosses get that call, and then we get on the phone, call up our members, and get them out in the streets. As many as we can get. The goal isn't to fill those rallies or mobilize just enough for the PRI. The goal is to overwhelm them, drench them in the tsunami of our membership, and all crying out the PRI's chosen name. But isn't that a little disingenuous? Oh, sweet girl. Isabel reached a hand over to lightly squeeze her shoulder. You worry too much. Just focus on your job and enjoy your paycheck at the end. Now, drink up. You've got 400 more calls to make. When Central calls, the workers answer. There we go. Make sure we get one more. And it went... Okay, of course. Are we ready to move in, sir? One of the officers asked as they stood watching the The approaching crowd of protesters chanting slogans like Tierra y Libertad and other such phrases commonly tossed around radical land reform circles. Not yet, Omar replied. The chief hadn't given the go-ahead. Why, yeah, Omar couldn't say. He'd overheard the arguments between the chief and local landowners before, usually amounting to the chief talking about risks of creating a public disturbance, local landowners arguing that the protesters were the public disturbance. Usually the landowners went out, and this time it would be no different. Omar's radio cracked to life, and once he heard the signal, he shouted, "Advance!" All the officers gathered knew exactly what that meant. Equipped with batons and rifles, they marched forward and met the protesters head-on. The two waves crashed into each other, but as always, the officers were stronger. Screams of pain filled the street as some scrambled to get away. The hammer of the law beat them into the pavement. As Omar looked over the scene before him, the last of the protesters were either handcuffed or fled. He estimated that they caught over 80% of them. Around 8% of them. Those were good numbers to report to the chief. One of his lieutenants approached him, his baton bloodied. Are we bringing them all in for questioning or selection? We aren't questioning them. New laws. These anti-democratic radicals are going to wish they'd never come here. Toss them into the prisons, and if they ask, remind them that they aren't entitled to counsel anymore. Not when they're threatening public order. The people's order must be protected. Alright. Next up we have the Union State. Now, the Confederación de Trabajadores de Mexico, despite the misgivings of some, is Mexico's primary workers' union, a firm friend of ours. They have the often thankless task of cooperating with said workers and maintaining an agreeable balance between the standard of work and the standard of living, keeping a wrangle on forces that could pose a potentially revolutionary threat, ensuring they remain pliable. The CTM are not Mexico's only union, but they have a certain distaste for many of the others, existing on the edge of radical politics, and espousing dangerous anti-democratic ideals, fascism, communism, the familiar troublemakers who we cannot tolerate. Let's put out a message and let everyone know that the CTM has more than earned our blessing as the best option for Mexico's workers. Alright. I really think we need to worry about construction right now anyway. We've almost got this all up to 60, and 60 is what we need to really worry about. Oh boy. Salvador Gaitan stayed for only a moment. Just long enough to feel the rush of hot air on his skin, hear the crack of the dynamite. The bridge crumbled in the ravine, only in the corner of his eye, because a satchel of explosives was on his back, and his legs were pumping down the gravel path. Charging downhill, he could see the fruits of his sabotage, of Hamiza's propaganda. Thousands of peasants burning Ibarra's fields, looting their opulent manors. Good. If his cell could blow one more bridge. Thump, thump, thump. Thump. Went the sound of his legs pounding uphill now. His comrades should already be there. He should have already been there. And then he heard the cracks of rifle fire, and the shouts, and the screams. Two Ibarra trucks across the unblown bridge, one in front with a flat tire. Good thinking. 4 GPG men who had brought him that time were lying dead, bone fragments and blood smears across the dirt. Pablo Gomez behind a tree, safe. Where were the others? With the loudest battle cry his winded lungs could muster, Salvador threw himself behind a rock. Came up, shot. One thug at a time, bumper dropped. Fired yet again, another yelp. Ran. Third time a bald goon punched through the chest. As he crouched to reload, he heard the squeal of the rear truck being thrown into reverse. The Ibarra's men were shouting, hopping aboard or fleeing into the woods. Salvador shot 3 more times at vanishing assailants, at murderers of peasants and friends. Then his head cleared and the remainder of his cell emerged from the trees. He stood, got 6 dynamite from his satchel, and got back to work. First blood drawn. Oh boy. Let's do military base construction, why not? Clifton rapidly shot up, rapped loudly on an industrial metal door. After a moment, a short man, decades into a hair-loss journey, heaved his door open. "Good morning. We're looking for the owner of his factory. Can I presume that you are Mr. Ramirez?" A pair of men with clipboards announced. They wore crisp army uniforms, but their boots were caked with dust, evident of a day spent shuffling around factory floors in the suite of Puebla. It was civil servants and civilian bureaucrats who would manage and inform public policy, but in the new Castillo administration, the military ran almost all aspects of government. "I own this factory." "Yes. How can I help you, gentlemen?" "Perfect. You see, Mr. Ramirez, we're here to represent the local state government office. We're here to inform you that you are eligible for tax rebate as part of a new program by Governor Castillo." The officer pulled out a pamphlet and handed it to the factory owner. They have listed a number of new machines and technologies that, while expensive, would significantly modernize any manufacturing process. Within, you will see several items that you may purchase and file with local council to earn your tax credit. If you have any questions, you can contact the Council of Industrial Progress. "The council? You want me to work with those thugs?" "All that so-called council represents the combined interests of all the corrupt oligarchs, businessmen, landowners, and conservative cronies that your commanding officers could scrounge together." Ramirez threw the pamphlet back into the officer's face. All three men watched as the cheap paper booklet tumbled to the dirty ground. Everything was silent except for the whirring of machinery within the busy factory. Ramirez flinched as the officer slowly reached in his jacket and towards his holster. But instead of a gun, he pulled out a pen and pad. "If you have any complaints, sir, I'll be sure to write down your name and information." I could have done very different. So we can't quite do this anyway. Again, save. No, wait, I don't want to mess around with this anyway, because by the next time next focus comes around, yeah, that's right. Only one of these can lose anything, and I don't want to lose any construction right now. And we could save up. I'll just save up right now. Scars on Raphael's arm, weaving between the goosebumps, had not been those of a coward. Raphael had challenged El Oso to a knife fight, and won. Had cracked plenty of peasant skulls. The Ibarra family did not hire weaklings. He'd been ready to shoot as many as needed when Carlos had pulled up outside the bar and told him in Pelon the Ibarra estate was burning. Now he, Carlos, and 8 others were stumbling through the dark woods, jumping at every owl's hoot and broken twig. There was a safe house on the other side, a hilltop of bar, residents with a stone wall and a radio. Then was called for help, then hold it there until he got the numbers to break up the riding peasants, to get paid back for Pelon. As Raphael's feet started up the slope to the safe house, his mind went to Pelon's final moments. They roared across the bridge in a truck, peasants taking haphazard shots on them. But these peasants did not run when he shot one. Peasants that cried out, "Captain!" as one dived out of nowhere, pumping lead into Pelon and some other TO. Who were those peasants? Raphael could smell smoke. His tired feet quickened and then broke into a jog. As he crested the hill, breaking the tree line, he could see the flicker of flames engulfing the safe house. To his left, Carlos shouted something, and Raphael reached for his gun. Who the hell were these peasants? Salvador Gaitan and the Grupo Popular Guerrero answered with 3 bullets to his chest. Is that who the hell those peasants are? Oh my god, I feel like a Chilean saying this, but the CTM isn't a trade union confederation. It stands for Concha tu Madre, clearly. Alonzo had been fired for taking part in the strikes of '59 and sustained himself on odd jobs and the generosity of his neighborhood. As Lopez Mateo administration trundled on, Alonzo found he could apply for a job under the wing of the CTM, the Trade Union Confederation of Mexico. He had a certain hope that things would be somewhat better, but the union's worthlessness made clear that this would never be the case. There was no other avenue whereby workers could represent themselves to their bosses or the government. textbook monopoly situation which enabled the CTM to behave just like a corporate monopoly. Conditions never improved, and if it worsened, the union took no responsibility. The union was so enamored with red tape that it was difficult to even get a piece of CTM letterhead paper for personal use, let alone to respond properly if things went wrong. Worse yet were the union bosses, all willing students of a great sellout of Fidel Velasquez at the top of the CTM, who acted essentially like a sort of middle management in overalls. They all drove nice cars without fail. Fords, GMs, even a few Toyotas and Fiats. They all treated the factory bosses like their sworn brothers, sincerely fawning over them, while they did likewise, right where every worker could see them. Carismo, the tradition started by El Charo, a corrupt trade union leader in the 1940s who all but sold out his workers to the government and adhered to the army's every dictate, was alive and well. So much for the Concha tu Madre, Alonso thought. The conditions were shit. Thanks to the so-called Union State, things would never get better. Let's go ahead and do... We could do another focus real quick, I think. I'll read the next focus. We won't get to it in the next video, but I don't want the series to be overly long. I guess it doesn't matter too much, but that's kind of just my concern. Let's do Tonight in Love and Duty. While Mexico enjoys cordial relations with many nations and a long era of peace to back it up, they haven't come to us idly. Working within set principles where we determine our actions without foreign interference, the other nation's issues are our own. And we have promoted our peace and prosperity and become a reliable member of the international community. After all, are we not all reasonable people? Can warfare and strife not be avoided through acknowledgement of strides we have taken as a collective species, uniting as peaceful nations? Wallowing in interference and shallow imperialism is a way of those stuck in the past. We shall take a certain pride proceeding onward without these things. I'm gonna save real quick. This is gonna be the end of the video anyway, but I did want to test something out real quick because I am curious. If I can do a little hack of the system. That's not what I wanted to do. Nope. There we go. I could not break the system like that. Well, it was a rough shot. I'm going to go ahead and things there, my friends, but thank you so much for watching. Like, if you liked, dislike, didn't leave any comments, feedback down in the comments section below. I read all comments again, and I do appreciate any feedback you have for me. Check my various links in the description box below, leaving comments, feedback down in the comment section below as well. I read all comments again, appreciate any feedback you have for me. The sub button notification bell, keep updated with future uploads. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and leave things there. Thanks always for watching, my friends. My name has been Mr. Dogbout333, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.